Alright, so we're back to recording again. So you didn't finish, you got your associates, but you never went back to Weber State for your bachelor's.
No.
You're now working at Firestone, and you were there for about 3 years or so.
Yes.
And so when does Exterior Builders come into the picture?
Well, you got to end Firestone first.
Oh, okay.
Firestone, there was a mistake made in ordering in my Firestone store. We had this order form that you would put these symbols in, and those symbols would translate through the machinery to say what
You wanted 20 tires of this.
yeah. Well, this was antifreeze, and either myself or what was kind of an F&I guy type person.
Okay.
I was okay. Anyway, if the scanner misread it, it read it as a carload instead of a case.
And carload is a train carload?
Exactly. And so, all of a sudden I get called and said, you got a carload of antifreeze down here at the docks. And that's a lot of antifreeze.
Oh, yeah.
And at the time, antifreeze was about, when you bought it in that kind of volume, got a pretty good deal on it. So it was about 96 cents a gallon. And I called and told them, there's no turning back, it's mine. Well, then they take and you do an inventory. Well, that makes my inventory way out of balance because of all this inventory. And this inventory this is what we did before. I'm still lost. Anyway,
well, this is only 20th. We need to go 3 more blocks up.
Yep, I know. But I got caught in a bind there. Anyway, to get back online here, that inventory made it so I was way out of inventory. Well, and it was at the end of our fiscal year for Firestone, and so Firestone penalized me because of this mistake and wiped out the profit of my store basically for the year. Well, I went to work and started working, selling that antifreeze. Well, lucky for me, antifreeze went through a change right at that point where it went from 96 cents a gallon to $4 a gallon.
There was some kind of supply and demand issue, some shortage or something?
Well, they made some rule changes on how much you can have and how you had to handle it and the type of antifreeze. Anyway, so all of a sudden now on the inventory, because they had taken the adjustment, everything I sold was all profit because they had taken it all from me, and the value, the term first in, last out, or FIFO or LIFO.
LIFO,
yep.
Yep.
Because of that,
FIFO, first in, first out.
I got all this antifreeze, so I start peddling it.
Gotta wait for the guard to...
And there's a real shortage on that.
So you went from a real zero.
Yeah. So now it comes in, and I go out and I sell all this antifreeze. I mean, I sell an entire carload of antifreeze.
Out of your store or just to other stores?
Out of my store, to other stores, to anybody that'll buy it.
Right.
But at the time, I'm the only one that's got antifreeze.
So you're an outlet for it.
And I am absolutely on it. Selling, and it throws the profit picture on my little store right out of the moon. Well, it came to the end of the year, and now they take away this false profit that you got because it was a fluke. So they wanted to not, there's that house right there.
Yeah.
They weren't going to pay me my bonus. They weren't going to pay me my money, and they didn't pay me the year before because of the other way around. I said, hey, somewhere here I need to get paid. This isn't fair. Anyway, it ended up I quit. I said, I don't work for people that I don't trust, and I don't trust Firestone.
And so where did you, is that when you started Exterior Builders?
Yep. Well, getting real close now. How far south was that Baldwin radio?
35. 3475.
3475. Okay, let's see how far south we are here.
3435. So we needed to turn right there.
Oh, Jerome. This is craziness, but I'm enjoying it, believe me.
That's fine. There's traffic right on top of you now.
Yep.
All right, you can make your move right now. So you left Firestone,
and one of my tire stores. I mean, you know, I used to sell tires and things to Texaco stations.
Okay.
There's Baldwin radio right there. Let's take a walk.
All right. All right, so here we are at Baldwin Radio.
Yep. Provide power.
So that's the old. I mean, that's where that's a modern version of what he.
Well, that's what it replaced in the grid.
Yeah.
Okay, we're off.
Well, that's kind of cool.
I'll drive down and around inside there so you see. But this is Mill Creek, and Mill Creek was, again, when Grandpa made it, he bought all this area here, and when he was working when he got fired from BYU, they put him with the power company, and he ran a power station. The first one he ran, I think, was up in by Pineview Reservoir, and then he got sent down to Mill Creek, and that was where he was at Mill Creek is when he actually worked on that, making those speakers. My dad was 3 or 4 years old. He remembers being at that power plant with his dad, and that was where the magic was found, was there. And these are craftsmen here. Woodwork, all kinds of different things. He puts on a couple of special events each year.
Here, cross back over to this side because this is the down. And
Yeah, I understand. I'm good at coming down the down. Anyway,
What's beeping at us?
my seatbelt.
Oh,
But that's the old plant right there.
Baldwin Radio Factory. Yeah, as I understand it, there was 2 superpowers in the world of radio. One was back in Chicago or something, and
Well, the one in Chicago was actually a spin-off from here. In fact, I told you about my dad's bike trip to Chicago. When my dad rode his bike to Chicago, when he got back there, he went to work for Chicago radio in competition with his dad. But back there is when he actually, after going back there and working at Chicago radio, he said that's not the right name. When he was back there, he got involved in the war, and eventually he got his mission call from when he was back there in Chicago. And then he did come back to Utah to go on his mission from Utah. But anyway,
All right, so Firestone, you're selling cars still? That's just a side gig?
And when I'm with Firestone, I'm with Firestone.
You're 100% committed to that?
Yep. And when I left Firestone, now I had one of my Texaco dealers that I sold tires to from Firestone that had sold out his Texaco station, and now he was doing home improvements. He was working with some guys out of a company called Northwest Builders, and he was having fun. He thought it was great, and the world was wonderful.
So windows, doors, siding, gutters, roofs, that kind of thing? Okay.
Yep. Mainly, the real big money maker at that time, and that he was in, was vinyl siding.
Was it vinyl then or aluminum?
Vinyl. Aluminum was around and steel, but vinyl was the product that he was selling, and he was doing well. They were making a lot of money. So making a lot of money sounded like fun to me. Anyway, he introduced me to a guy that needed a partner. He was a slicker. His name was Jim Ashpool, and that was not exactly who he was, but it was close. He was more like Jim Asshole. But anyway, he needed a front guy, and a front guy is the guy that knocks doors, finds appointments, and set up presentations, and then the closer comes in, does his song and dance, and closes the deal, and you make up the paperwork and turn it into the office, and the office sends a crew out to do the job. And when the job's done, there's a rate for the job to be done per square. It was probably one of the easiest ones. But per square of siding, this is how much it cost applied. And if you'd sold it for whatever you sold for more than that, it was your money. And so I was working for him, and we were doing pretty well. And he had a silent partner who was an attorney downtown Salt Lake. And then, I don't know how Jim hornswoggled him into it, but he did. But anyway, he was backing some money, and we were out working. We had 5 or 6 crews going all the time. We were plenty busy, but there was always an excuse on payday. I went for a while not getting any pay, and then this attorney one day said, "Hey, he wasn't getting any return on his investment either," and so he got after me about making collections, and I said, and he named a couple of different ones, and I said, okay, I'll go get them handled right now. I took the car and drove out to those people's houses, and son of a gun, they all said the same thing.
They had paid already.
They paid Jim. They paid Jim. Well, as soon as I told that to Jim's money man, that, hey, those people told me they've already paid, and they paid Jim. And Jim wanted to say, Baldwin skimming. No. Anyway, I had been out selling, and I had 4 jobs of my own that I'd sold. I'd done everything on them, and I had crews on them, and I knew it. And they were going to close out, and I went and collected on them. I had the money in my hand, and I went and made sure the suppliers had been paid on them, and I turned the money, instead of into Jim, into the attorney. Jim didn't like that, so he said, we can't work together. I said, that's fine with me, we're done. So I had some more business written, and I had a couple of crews that liked to work with me, and I liked to work with them, and so we went out and built a couple of jobs, and all of a sudden I get pulled into the state for contracting without a license, and that's the truth. I was contracting without a license, and I thought, oh well, my world is cooked, but I was trying to keep me getting paid, some money coming in, and paying these guys. So anyway, I went to the contractors board, and this is the king of the contractors board sits as King God Almighty over contractors for the state of Utah, and his name was Ross Urey. He was an older guy. He was about my dad's age.
Okay.
Been on a mission in England, in fact.
Coincidence? Well, let's find out. Keep telling the story.
Yeah. So he brings the meeting to order, and he says, okay. So this complaint here says that Mr. Ashpole, he had Jim stand up. Mr. Ashpole, it says that you are accusing Mr. Baldwin here of contracting without a license. And he says, yes, sir, he doesn't have a license. He says, how do you know he doesn't have a license? Listen, I know he doesn't have a license. He couldn't do that. You know? And Ross Urey cut him off and said, listen, I'll listen to your side of the story, and then I'll listen to Mr. Baldwin, and I'll make the decision. But I decide who is a license and who isn't, not you. And he said, Mr. Baldwin, got a couple of questions for you. He says, do you know a guy by the name of Kelvin Baldwin? I said, yes, sir. He's my father. And this guy, this Mr. Yuri, looks over at Mr. Ashbo. He says, Mr. Ashbo, you want to follow through on this complaint? He says, yes. He says, well, I know for a fact that this man has a license because I'm the licensing authority. And I'm telling you, he has a license. And man, did I get lucky on that one. Anyway, they threw it out and he issued me a license. Then I was a B1 general contractor. And
But didn't he call you up to his bench or whatever? I mean, he was like a judge, right?
yeah.
He calls you up to the bench and he says, I know this man's father, and if he says he has a license, I know he has a license, kind of comment, right?
Yep.
And then he gives you the look and says, after it's all dismissed and it's just kind of closed doors kind of thing, now here's what you need to do. You need to go do this, and this, or I'm pulling this license. Right?
Yep, that's true.
So he just basically fronted you the license and said, now go do the work.
Yep. But and we did really well. That crew, we developed that crew into more than one crew, and then we finally got some specialists that came in to give us some real uniqueness. We had a Finnish carpenter that was just unbelievable. The way he could trim things out, the way his work was just beautiful. Thing of art, really. And we got a plumber and we got some electricians. In fact, the electricians we got was another neat deal. They were the city building inspectors, but they were also licensed electricians. So we give them the electrical work on the job, and while they're there, they would check everything else. We didn't have any problem with the code or anything with the city.
So you had real quality work and had it fast-tracked.
Yep. And we had a couple of banks that would buy in our contracts, and
everybody was getting paid.
Yep. Everything was going along great, and we'd grown maybe a little too fast. And I ran into a job, the guy that owned Olympus Bowling Alley, right up the top of the street here.
Uh-huh.
He contracted me to overhaul the bowling alley, and we went in. It was a big job. It was, at that time, it was $66,000, and that was a ton of money.
Yeah, that would have been like $1 million overhaul now.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, if
a few $100,000, right? Maybe.
Well, again, I would say from 1972 to the present, if you were to figure out how much a car was in 1972 versus how much a car is today.
Yeah.
You know, if a car back then was $5,000, a typical car now is $50,000. It's 10 times that. So
yep.
I'm saying that was like a $6 million job, if you were to talk about inflation. Okay.
Yep.
So it was a lot of money. You're floating a lot of money out there.
Yep. And we always paid early to get the extra discounts of paying early, and we always stayed ahead. You know, that was our MO. And so anyway, we did that contract because it was so big. We set it up in 3 stages that he would pay. He would pay 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So we get going, and we hit the first draft. We're a third of the way into it, and he doesn't pay. And I call him up, oh yeah, wow, this has got somebody to this, somebody that. knew this guy had the ability to write me a check for the whole thing. He was big money. And so I let it slide, and we kept working. We hit the second payment. Now he's into us half the dough.
Two-thirds of it. So if it's a $60-something thousand job, he's into you $40,000 now.
Yep. And that's getting deep, because we've got materials and everything on other jobs. We've got payroll coming up, and we haven't been paid. So I called him again. He says, "Oh, it just slipped my mind. I'll handle it right now." I says, "Okay, do you mind if I call you back here in a minute? Make sure you got it done?" He said, "No, that's fine. But I'll get it done." So he didn't. Now we just about got his job finished. And most everything other than some labor and stuff has been already paid. And lien releases, you have to understand on those kind of things, when you buy supplies from these in big volume, that you have to get a lien release saying that it was paid for the lenders to fund. But we didn't have a lender here other than him. But we were gathering up our stuff because we wanted to get paid, and we were just about done. And so I called him up. I said, "I'm coming over right now, and I need to pick up that check." He said, "Oh, no problem." He had an office on First South in the state. And went down to his office, and went up to his office and walked in, and he had that check right out there. There it is, in full. "When can you get your guys back on the job?" I said, "I already put them back on the job based on what you said to me." And he said, "Okay." He said, "When do you think it'll be done?" I said, "I think it'll probably be done in the next 2 days." He said, "Okay." He says, "Well, everything's been great. Appreciate what you did on my son's house." And we did his son's house. We got paid for that at this big project. So, end of the week, put it in the check in the bank, and the bank calls me. It's been stopped payment. $66,000 check. Well, we have already figured we had that deposit, and it was in a form of a bank check, not just a personal check or something, but it was a bank check. And we'd already written out the bills. So the bills were out, and he stopped payment. I jumped in my car, and I drove over to his place, and walked in, and said, what in the world's going on?" He says, "Don't be mad. It's just business." I said, "What do you mean it's just business?" He says, "Look, I did my homework. I knew what I was doing, and I can tell that if I don't pay you this money, it will kill you. You can't exist.
Yeah,
you haven't got the money to fight.
You're too small to fight me on it."
Yep. I mean, he didn't get ruffled at all. Just matter of fact. And I got a hold of Don, of course. That was my attorney buddy.
Don Blackham.
Yeah.
Blackham.
Blackham.
Blackham. Okay.
Yeah. And he did some sword rattling, but that's about all. I mean, he couldn't do anything. So, yep, that was
the demise of Exterior Builders, because
yep.
He just said, "Look, nothing personal. I just don't.
Yep.
I can get away with not paying you, and I'm going to."
Yep. I mean, he was a typical. He was proud that he was being a Jew and being able to beat me out of my deal, and that he won. I mean, he saw it as a challenge and a lesson for me. In fact, he told me a lesson for me. And then he also said, "On the next job we do," I said, "No next job." He said, "Well, you're going to need to land somewhere." terrible, but
that education cost you an awful lot, huh?
it did.
Did you have a contract with him, like?
Oh yeah.
And he just fought it.
Yep.
He just tied it up in court till it wasn't worth fighting anymore, huh?
Yep. He says, I got attorneys on retainers. I can do that all day long, but you can't. And for me, I actually did have Don who would fight it for me, but it would have been it wouldn't have been something we could have really ever wanted. Anyway, that's history now. Yeah, that was a tough one.
So, was it during that time of your life that you started reading through your grandfather's journals? Was that the low point where your business was falling apart?
Well, when I was starting up Exterior Builders, my world fell apart.
Okay, I'm going to stop right